I would like to start by expressing my deep condolences with those who lost family members and friends in Saturday's attack. And on behalf of the German government, I would like to reassure the British people that we are standing side by side when it comes to fighting terrorism. Our open democratic societies might be vulnerable, but we are much stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, the offshore industry has taken me by surprise. This year in April, we had our first auction of offshore wind, 1,500 megawatts. And out of 4 projects, 3 projects received a contract and they bid subsidies of 0. I did not expect that. And I don't think that there was anybody else in Germany who expected that. This is an incredible development. Costs have come down in a way that none of us was expecting it. And I think this result of the first auction shows how incredibly innovative the offshore industry has been over the last years, how they were capable of cutting costs. And it also shows that there is a big trust in the market design, because those who plan to invest into these huge, expensive projects obviously believe that they can cover their investment costs and their operational costs from revenue from the wholesale market. So this trust in the market design, I think, is absolutely key. So these, I think, are the lessons that we can learn from this process. We need a stable framework that governments have to decide on, and we need an innovative industry that then afterwards will produce incredible results. And this has been very much on the focus of our work in the last years in Germany to set this framework. And in the power sector, it was actually 4, I call them political construction sites, that we have been focusing on. The first one was bringing renewables to the market. The second one has been making the market ready for increasing shares of renewables. The third one is infrastructure. And the fourth one has been integration into the European single market. When we started supporting renewables with our EEG, our Renewable Energy Act in the year 2000, we had 6–7% share of renewables. Most of that was hydro. And we created a very simple system back then because we wanted new technologies to develop. It was a feed-in tariff, very simple, 20 years guaranteed price for every kilowatt hour you would feed into the grid. And no responsibility for marketing. This very simple system got an incredible development going. I'm not saying that we never made any mistakes. We even made some expensive mistakes, but the good story is, in a very short time, the renewables became the strongest source of power in our system. The cost came down incredibly. If I look at the situation today, wind and solar, the costs are below the costs as if we would build new coal generators in Germany. This has been an incredible development, but of course, after such a success, those instruments that were right in the year 2000 had to be reformed. And of course, the renewables had to be integrated into the power market. And we took 2 steps. The first step, 2014, where we said, if you produce a product, you are responsible for marketing it. So this marketing responsibility we decided on in 2014 for all new installations. And then we already announced in 2014 that the next step will be competition. Prices would not be any longer decided in Parliament, but through competitive bidding through auctions. And we started with large-scale solar. An incredible development happened. Average price in the first round was 9.17 cents, and then it came down. Now the prices are between 5 and 6 cents. As I just mentioned, first round of auctioning offshore parks, wind offshore parks, with incredible price reductions. Now we have seen that we don't only see good prices, but we also see the projects. With the solar auctioning, the phase of where the people who received a contract had to realize their project was just up a few weeks ago. We have close to 100% realization of those projects that we auctioned. And a couple of weeks ago, we had our first round of auctioning of wind onshore, and a lot of citizens' organizations received contracts. But as I said, the biggest surprise was offshore because of the incredible cost reductions. So moving away from politically decided prices to competitive bidding so far has been a fantastic success. The second political construction side was making the market ready for integrating higher shares of renewables. In my country, the renewables that work are wind and solar. We don't have the luxury of countries like, for example, in the Alps or up in Scandinavia, where there's a lot of hydro. That's easy. Whenever you need electricity, you open the valve of the turbine. If you need less, you shut it a little bit. You know that it's more complicated with weather-dependable production of electricity from windmills and solar panels. And for that, we need a new market design, and that's what we have been working on. We started with a green paper where we outlined the alternatives, created a white paper, and then decided on the necessary legislation. And we very much believe that if the market design is ready, is the right one, then an energy-only market 2.0 is the superior model. And that's what we have been deciding on, and actually it's a very simple system. If you trade electricity in Germany, you are responsible at all times to feed in the same amount of kilowatt hours into the system as you sell to customers. And if you hold all the energy traders responsible, if you don't allow anybody to sell electricity that he does not have, you can be sure that there is no shortage. Of course, you have to control, and of course, you have to sanction. And if somebody an energy trader in my country would sell electricity and on the short-term market then would not be able to buy enough electricity to support the customers that he has signed a contract with, the price he would have to pay would be 20,000 euros per megawatt hour. 20,000. You know, the average price right now is around 32 euros. 20,000 euros if you cannot balance your ins and out as an energy trader. So we believe that is the right market design, and I look at the auction of wind offshore that investors believe in the stability of this market design that we decided on in Germany. The third political construction side that I mentioned has been infrastructure. And of course, everybody thinks about grids when I say infrastructure, and that of course is right, but infrastructure is more. It's also digitalization. But let me first say a few words about grid expansion. The 82 million people in Germany still more or less live at the same places as they lived 10 and 20 years ago, but our production sites are changing now. There's a lot more wind energy being produced in the north. We have the new big solar farms, and now we have to bring that electricity from the sites where it's being generated to the customers. And in Germany, it means a lot of transport from the north down to the industrial centers in the south. For that, we need an improvement of our AC lines, a few thousand kilometers. and we decided to install also new DC technologies, 3 big autobahns for kilowatt hours from the north down to the south. Politically, it has been very controversial, but 2015 there was a unanimous decision between our parliament and our second chamber, because everybody knows if you want to maintain one bidding zone in Germany on the wholesale market, you need to remove the bottlenecks in the grid, because it doesn't make sense to auction electricity that after the auction has taken place cannot be delivered to those who bought that electricity. So we are in this process now. We're making good progress, but it's a constant race. On the one hand, we're expanding renewables. Most likely this year, if we have a year of normal weather conditions, we are already going to have at least 35% renewables in our grids. And we are moving ahead to 40, 45, and so on in the next years. And at the same time, we are expanding the grids. And it's a race that we hope that we will be able to win for these big north-south interconnectors. The year when we want to take them into operation is 2025. We're working very hard on realizing that. So when it comes to possibly more offshore, we're all in favor of that, but we need the grids, because it doesn't make sense to produce electricity that afterwards cannot be transported to the customers. So that is the bottleneck in Germany. It's not the funding for offshore, it's realizing and implementing the grid expansion. I said infrastructure is more than grids, it's also digitalization. And I think this is a fascinating development that we see now. The world of kilowatt hours is coming together with the worlds of bits and bytes. They're completely new business models now emerging. In Germany, we have close to 2 million, 1.89 million generators now, from the small solar panel to the big coal generator. We have 82 million private people plus businesses. And there's only one way to coordinate production and supply, that is the market, and the digitalization is opening up a whole new set of opportunities of coordinating supply and demand. And I'm telling our traditional power companies in Germany at every speech, watch out what is happening there. Deal with these issues of digitalization, otherwise you're going to lose customers in the future. There are a lot of new, exciting business models that are emerging now. The fourth political construction side has been the integration into the European market. And I think that all of us are going to benefit from it. Minister Margam just talked about it, how we cooperate as neighbors, onshore and also offshore. And if you want to transform your power system into a renewable power system, the larger you make the area that you connect with good grids, the easier it becomes. It just makes a lot of sense to connect wind and solar in Germany with hydro in the Alps and hydro up in Scandinavia, and of course also with all the other countries in Germany. And that's why I'm extremely happy that the European Commission put this clean energy package on the table on December 6th of last year. The negotiations in the Council and the Parliament are making good progress, and I think this is an extremely important piece of legislation that is going to set the framework for Europe for the next decades. And I'm very happy that the proposal of the Commission for the market design of the power market is very similar to what we already decided on in Germany last year. I'm not saying that there are not also parts of this clean energy package where I would like to see more. For example, when it comes to the part that deals with the support scheme for renewables. The Commission seems to believe that it's better to leave that up to DG Competition Well, I'm not against control of competition. That is, if you have a single market, you need an institution that watches over the rules. But when we talk about the energy transition here in Europe, over to renewables, to our targets that we have for 2030, it's a multi-billion euro project. And if we want to see this investment, we have to set clear rules. And that's what we are arguing for in the Council now and with the parliamentarians and with the commissions, that what we would like to see in this package would be something like a common rule book, so everybody knows what are the support schemes that we as Europeans want to see to fulfill our targets. DG competition has its place, but these political decisions have to be made by those who are politically responsible and who have a seat in the Council or in the Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there is a fantastic development happening now, and when we talk about this clean energy package, at the very center of it is the protection of our climate, reducing our emissions by 40% in Europe until 2030. And very often I hear about all the burden that we have to share. I don't think that that is the right language. I think the development, especially of the offshore industry, has shown us this is about opportunity sharing. And if we want to win the public for this transition, I think we have to make clear that this decarbonization that is necessary to protect our climate, this decarbonization is not deindustrialization, it is modernization. This is a fantastic project to modernize our economies, and I think the offshore industry has a great part in that. Thank you very much for your attention.